It says that I am live. Yes. Okay. Welcome to the Good Fight. I'm Denise, your guide, Reverend Doctor. That's what it says, and you can call me Denise. I'm your guide for the workplace, and I'm excited about the conversation that we are about to have on today. And I can't wait to see your response. I cannot wait to hear your response. So don't let me prolong things. Welcome to the Good Fight. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you are here and you come on a regular basis, welcome. If you are not live right now, but you're going to watch it later, welcome. That's the sign language. It's like taking a bow. You're welcome. You're welcome in this place. We receive you. Because this is the place where we talk about having I changed the word today. It used to say on the flyer, in pursuit um, of of a deconstructed faith, but today I changed it to a decolonized faith. And I think I'm going to stick with that. Like, I'm not sure because we're just journeying along. I'm not really sure, but I think I'm going to stick to that word, a decolonized faith, and probably because of what we're talking about tonight, about whether or not God is pro-life or whether God is pro-life or pro-choice. That is the question that's on the table. Do you think God is pro-life, or do you think that God is pro-choice? Hotel, so Hotel knows where this is coming from. I had a conversation this morning, so I want to make sure that I bring everybody else up to speed. So, did I do the preliminaries? There are different ways that you can interact with the Good Faith on tonight. One of the ways you can do is to find yourself in the story, locate yourself. When we hear something, sometimes we say we wish somebody else had heard that. We wish somebody else had been here because they needed that. But this particular space is for us to examine ourselves. Like, where am I in this story? Is that the best place for me to be in this story? Is there a way out of this place that I'm in the story? Like, we just have to locate ourselves. And then the second way that we can that we can engage with a good fight is to look through a mirror where someone else's story is being told, and you want to center their story. You want to give their story faith. You want to, space. You want to give their story honor. You just want to say, oh my goodness, I realize that everyone is having different lived experiences. I am not going to be so caught up in my own that I cannot recognize yours. And so I want to just pause for a minute and see you and hear you and respect you, and then ask you how I can support you, so we can center ourselves in that way. But actually, now that I think about it, both one and two go hand in hand, because you can also find yourself reflected in another person's story, particularly if you are listening to a story from a person who is in a marginalized community. They have marginalized identities, probably maybe even multiple marginalized identities. Like, so take me for example. To be Black is a marginalized identity. To be woman is a marginalized identity, and to be hard of hearing is a marginalized identity. So I show up in this space, I tell my story. Some of you might be the reasons that I'm suffering from what I'm the reasons that I am experiencing life the way that I am, because you are part of the system that is oppressing me. And so the way that you can engage also invites you not only to center the other person's story, but to find yourself in that story as well. Yes. And then the third way that you can engage in the good fight is to walk through a door. So not how long, we talk in economics, in Black economics, we talk a lot about the need for the dollar to circulate more than one time in our own neighborhood, because that is one of the ways that we boost the economy. We build economics, cooperative economics in our neighborhood. So we want that dollar to stay in it. And so that's the idea. We want, when we're having this conversation, then what we want is for the conversation to stay within our neighborhood, within our bodies, like stay here with us and turn over more than one time, so that we can reap all of the benefits from the conversation that we possibly can. Because some of those benefits won't come until later, because we have to live into them. So as life goes on, things about this conversation may or may not pop up. And so be willing and open to whatever the conversation will bring you beyond tonight. And then finally, the fourth way you can engage is just like Hotep. You can send a comment, and then we will post the comment on the screen, and then you all can have a dialogue amongst yourselves if you like, because whatever I type, whatever I respond with is going to go, it's going to post on YouTube. It's not going to post right here. I wonder why they haven't done something about that. Like, I'm on StreamYard, I can see y'all, I have a place to post, but my comment will not post to this destination. It'll post to YouTube. And so those are the 4 ways that you can engage with the good fight. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get to it. On the air this morning, Community Voices, which airs live on KABF 88.3 FM, we were having a conversation about reproductive rights and reproductive justice. And I lifted up about 3 different stories from the Bible that showed that the Bible itself, the letter of the word, the letter of the text, does not respect women. In fact, it dehumanizes women and it disrespects women, and it denies women. So I was lifting that up. And then my co-host, Tony Orr, Pastor Tony Orr, he made a statement and he asked a question about what happens in the story of David and asked whether or not you believe God is pro-choice or pro-life based on God's response to David. And so that is what got my wheels to turning about whether or not God is pro-life or pro-choice, and pro-life or pro-choice. And I guess, of course, there's room for all possibilities, right? Like, I don't think it has to be an either or. So I am leaving it open for you to come in at some gray space, because that's fine with me. I don't believe the world is black or white. This dualistic system that we live in is harming us on so many levels. You either are a Democrat or Republican. I don't care about you trying to run independent. That don't even matter. These two are the only things that matter. Either you're a man or a woman. That's it. Either you are black or white. Like, that's it. And we don't make room for the nuances of life. So I'm definitely going to do that. Create space for the nuances. But for just, I guess, for simplicity in writing on a flyer, the question is, do you think God is pro-life or pro-choice? And what I want to do is read the stories to you so that you will have a grounding into the conversation rather than just listening to me and hearing my perspective as kind of like a commentator, because I've already read it. This is what I think about it. And so I want to lift up these stories so that you can decide for yourself, and you don't have to decide today, right? That's the beauty of walking through a door. It may take you, I don't know, forever to decide. And you may never decide on you may never come to a conclusion. It does, that part doesn't matter. What matters is that we are digging deeper into what we believe and why we believe it. So here's make the distinction that you are referring to the Christian God. Oh, okay. Make the distinction that you are referring to the Christian God. So I'm going to ask. So that's also interesting, because I was having a conversation with Scott Green today at the Sue Calvin Williams Library, and I asked him something about himself. I don't remember what I asked him, and he said to me, ask God. You're gonna have to ask God. And I said, I'm gonna have to ask your God about you. What? and then his response was, and I said, well, have you asked my God about me? And he said, well, look, your God, my God, like, do we not have the same God? And he said, it sounds like we don't have the same God. And we didn't get into that part. We kept going. But to Lowe's point, yeah, I think that people are serving different gods. Is the God different, or is our service to the God different, right? That becomes the nuance. We just got to be talking about nuance. So I'm talking about the God. I'm talking from a Christian perspective. And so I'm talking about the God that Christians support. And that is what he's asking me to do. Make sure you understand that we're talking about the God that Christians support, because even though there's one God, we are responding to that God in different ways. So I appreciate that. So, that's what I want to do. I'm extremely dry tonight. That's what I want to do. I want to lift up these stories so that you can understand where the conversation is coming from. You won't just be listening to me. You'll have your own foundation of the story. And then of course you can go back to the story time and time again and get what you want. I just did that the other day on TikTok. Somebody sent me an Instagram reel. And when I first watched it, I thought they were being, it was a prejudice toward Black people. I was like, what? And I was ready to fight. Then I had to go back and look again, take another look, and keep my mind open and understand what was going on. So I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to hear these stories and decide for yourself. That is always important to me. Choice. You choose to decide and believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just asking us to think about it on a deeper level so that it manifests on a deeper level. Okay, so the first story is, we need to know about David and Bathsheba. We're going to have to know about David and Bathsheba before we move into any other space. Okay, that's what I'm looking for right there. Is this? No. Nope. Hold on just a minute, y'all. Here we go. Same thing that happened last week. Oh, it says there's an error. Oh, there's an error, and it didn't give me all that I was asking for. Oh my. Let me see. What is this error they're telling me I have? Sometimes I really do think things are conspiracies. Sometimes I really do think that. Let's see if I can. I'm trying to see if I can. It won't let me. Oh my goodness. Make it a big statement. Okay, yeah. I really wanted you all to be able to see this for yourselves, but I've suffered some kind of. They telling me some kind of error, and they won't give me what I put up there. Technology, you love it and then you hate it. Love it and then you hate it. All right, so this, I'm going to have to read it to you. I'm not asking you to trust me. Not at all. I'm not asking you to trust me, but I want you to hear me read it, and then you can take the time to read it on your own. But the other scriptures we'll be able to pull up. I have them loaded up. I don't know why they didn't load these. So this is the story of David and Bathsheba, and it's found in 2 Samuel chapter 11, and I'm reading from the New International Version, NIV. So 2 Samuel chapter 11, reading from the New International Version. This is David and Bathsheba. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. So people gone off to war, but David didn't go to war. He's the king. He sent other people to war. So he's back at the at the pad, what we call our house. He's chilling at home. So one evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. He saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the son of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant." So David sent this word to Joab: send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going on. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. So David sees this beautiful woman across the way. He's on the roof of his palace. He sees her bathing. He thinks she's beautiful, and he decides in himself, I want her. He inquires about who she is. Her name is Bathsheba. He said, bring her to me. People bring her to David. And then then it says he slept with her. So let's pause for just a moment. So if David is the king, and whatever the king says for you to do, that is what your job is as a soldier, or in this monarchy, where if the king gives a word, then everyone is supposed to respond to the word. When Bathsheba was sent for, she does not have an opportunity to consent. If the king wants you, you go see what the king wants. Point blank, period. You don't get to say, well, no, I don't think so. There's no room for that. And so when David gets there, it says he slept with her. Well, if I'm here without my consent, then for you, you just sent for me. I'm married to another man, and then you sleep with me. Is that really what's going on, or are you raping me? Right? Because if I don't have a choice, and I don't have a choice but to come over here, because you call for me because of the powers that you have as king, and so we already are in an imbalance. And then I show up, and then you have sex with me. I don't believe he slept with her. I believe he raped her. That's what I believe. So then, once he rapes her, Bathsheba gets pregnant. When Bathsheba gets pregnant, David panics. He starts scrambling to figure out what am I going to do? So he tells Joab, who is leading the army, tells him, send me Uriah. Uriah, remember, the Hittite, is Bathsheba's husband. So David, after impregnating Uriah's wife, calls for Uriah. When he gets there, Uriah is like, what's up? What's up, king? Like, what's going on? And then David begins to pretend like he's concerned about the war, like he's checking up on Joab, which is just crazy. Like, Joab is a leader. You call one of the fighters, the soldiers, to say, hey, tell me about your leader. That is not usually how that happens. And so he's like chatting him up. That's what he's doing, chatting him up. And then he says, won't you go down and wash your feet? And then it says he sends him a gift. David sends Uriah a gift. But Uriah does not obey King David in the way that King David wants him to. Uriah does not go home to his house. Instead, he goes to lie with the servants. Wherever the servants are, he's congregating with them for the night, even after he gets this gift from David. So Lo says she was still married when she becomes. Is that all you meant to write? She was still married when she becomes, or she was still married when she becomes pregnant, or she was still married when she comes? Like, help me understand. Oh wait, I skipped this one. Here's another. It says perhaps you can include the story of Ohala and Oholibah. I can't. Not today, because I'm gonna have to look that up. Like, I don't know these people. Does anybody know this story? If you do, like, drop it in the chat. Let's talk about it, because I don't know. But I promise you, I'm gonna learn, because I know you, Phyllis Brown. You be dropping straight knowledge. So I can't include that story because I don't know it. Absolutely know nothing about it. And so then Lo did come back and clarify. Perhaps you can include. She was still married when she becomes pregnant. Yes, she's still married to Uriah the Hittite when she becomes pregnant, but she's pregnant with King David's baby. King David is now panicking because he has learned that Bathsheba. Wait a minute, y'all. Why is King David panicking? If he's the king and he can do whatever he wants to in this patriarchal society where women do not have any power, And polygamy reigns, right? Like, because Solomon, his son, had 1,000 wives and concubines, 1,000 wives and 300 concubines, something like that. So why is he panicking? Do you know, that just dawned on me. It's okay. Don't let me go chase that. I'll chase that later. Let me pull that to the side. And so he asks you for Uriah. He calls for Uriah. Uriah does not go home. David does send him a gift, but Uriah does not go home. Now we're going to pick up at verse 10. David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will do no such thing. And so usually when there's time for war, the men go off to war and they leave their wives at home. And for the entire duration of the war, they do not have any relationship with their wives. And so David's assumption is, since you've been away from your wife fighting this war, when you get an opportunity to go home, surely you're going to go home because you're going to reconnect with your wife. Surely it's been on your mind to touch your wife. Like, surely you have wanted and thought about having sex with your wife. And so now that you are away from the war, go home and have sex with your wife. And Uriah's mindset is, how dare I celebrate when people are at war? That reminds me of Phyllis Brown too. I think it was Christmas. And the war in Gaza was going on, and I think she was just talking to me, but the question was around that. Basically, that's what the question was. How is it that we as a country can celebrate all of this false narrative about Jesus when there are children in particular dying? Other people are dying, but children in particular are dying in this war between Palestine and Israel. And so this is what Uriah embodies. I dare not, in the midst of my own colleagues, in the midst of my own family in terms of my war family, in the midst of my own people who may very well be under siege at this moment, how dare I take this opportunity to have sex with my wife? I'm not doing that. Oh, okay. So Lo says the reason that King David panicked was because he would have been seen as adulterous. Like, can he the king? Can he do whatever he want to do? Ezekiel, here's the story. Ezekiel 20 tells the story of two sisters, Ohala and Olabah, who were prostitutes and punished by God. I'm gonna have to go. I don't remember that, and I know I've read the book of Ezekiel, because that's how Ezekiel on the radio show got his name, because he challenged me to read the book of Ezekiel and come back with a response. And so I know that I have read it, but I don't remember that. So thank you for that. I will definitely look at that. So when you say, Triana says, were they part of the tribes? Were who part of the tribes? Are you talking about Ohala and Ohalabah? Like, who you're talking about? I don't know how to answer that. I don't know who they. Clarify who they is. And so that's what happened. Uriah was supposed to go home. He was supposed to have sex with his wife, but he did not. It said the law of Moses still applied to the king of Israel. So Lo, are you kidding me right now? The law of Moses still applied to the king of Israel. I guess it's that thou shalt not have another man's husband. Is that in the law of Moses? And so if that's the case, why Solomon have clearly, if that's the case, clearly they don't care anything about the law of Moses, because they were doing whatever they want, whenever they wanted, however they wanted with women. It didn't matter if you were married. So I'm not sure I agree with you that David is now all of a sudden he's concerned about how he's going to be seen when he is king and has full reign. He can dictate. He can do. He can figure out how to make the law work for him. Isn't that what we're doing with Donald Trump right now? Like, I'm going to figure out how to make it work. And so that's what David could have done. So I'm not sure if I agree with you that David that David panicked because he didn't want to be seen as an adulterer. I don't know. But I'm willing to walk through a door and think about it some more beyond this moment. So in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, "Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die." So this is David's second attempt on Uriah's. This is David's second attempt to get himself out of this dilemma that he has put himself, that his power, his control, his desire, his arrogancy has put him in. And so Lo says, yeah, the law of Moses says, "Thou shalt not covet." And I'm saying, okay, I agree with you. I just don't think David cares about that law. And so you're saying, but it applies to him. Yeah, it does apply to him, but he doesn't have to follow it. Sometimes I don't wear my seatbelt. The law says I'm supposed to. I'm like, look, I don't feel like wearing no seatbelt. And there are consequences for that, just as there are consequences for David that we shall see. So here David is trying again to cover his bases. He needs Uriah to go home and have sex with his wife, because if he goes home and has sex with his wife, when the baby is born, nobody is going to think anything about nobody's going to question who's the father of this baby, because Uriah and Bathsheba are married. Like, of course it's her husband's baby. So Phyllis Brown says, yeah, that is precisely what Donald Trump is doing. And not just Donald Trump, right? So on some level, just like in the story, we'll get to it a little later, but just like in the story, it's not Donald Trump that has the power in this moment to rewrite the law. It's actually the Supreme Court, right? It's the Supreme Court, the DAs, like it's all of these supporting characters that will allow this law to be rewritten so that they can support their king, right? Absolutely. That's what's happening. This story is happening right in our faces. So, and this story, right, this part of the story too. So this is the part I want to lift up from verses 16 through 17. It says, Joab is at war. He's fighting at war. The king sends a note to the commander of the army and sends the note to Uriah. The note in it has instructions for Uriah to be killed. So Uriah is carrying in his hand, unbeknownst to him, the instructions for his own death. And that is happening to so many of us in this world right now, that we are so complicit in the systems of domination and exclusion, discrimination, war. We are so complicit in them that we don't realize that we are being used by them so that they can kill us. While they making plans to kill us, and we're being used, and we don't even realize that our lives are in danger, and we are carrying their message to the person that's going to kill us. Oh, okay. So Phyllis Brown agrees with me. Right. Not just Donald Trump. Yeah. Not just Donald Trump. But this world in which we live in, we're operating in that way, that we are going to do whatever it takes, bend the law, break the law, recreate a law, water down the law, so that we can have our king that we want to praise. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so in that while, so Uriah is carrying his letter to Joab from the king. Joab sent. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. So Joab is the commander of the army. He fixes it so that Uriah, the unsuspecting one who has done nothing wrong, is in the most vulnerable position to die. And let's think about that as it relates to COVID. When COVID hit, that's when some people really began to see the disparities in the healthcare. They really began to see that, wait a minute, because of how Black people have been, and non-Black people, because of how our conditions have been throughout this world, we have been positioned to be the most vulnerable. And as the most vulnerable, you put us in these essential jobs where you gotta go to work. And so the people can still be getting served whatever they need, and we are engaged in this system, not realizing it, the very system that is killing us. So you got us on the front lines with all of these with all of this discrimination, with all of this racism, with all of this exclusion, with all of this war. You got us on the front lines so that it is by design that our bodies suffer the most. Our bodies pay the ultimate price. And so Joab was on the front lines. He died in the war. Okay, keep going. Okay, this is verse 18. Oh my goodness. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot across from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerub-Besheth? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died in the Bez? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asks you this, then say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. I see Phyllis Brown's comment. Yeah, you got us on the front lines in the most vulnerable positions, because those are the black jobs. And the black jobs are hazardous to our health on so many levels, and they are going to lead to our death. And that is by design. And we have to realize that our complicity in these systems have us holding in our hands the right for somebody else to kill us. We're delivering them the very instructions that they need to take our lives. Like, that is powerful. We have got to figure out how to see ourselves, how to locate ourselves in these systems so that we can work to dismantle them. And so Joab, now the commander of the army, sends a servant to tell him to give King David a recap of the day, like what happened today. And so the servant has to go, and the servant has no clue about the conversation that David had through the letter from Uriah. He has no clue. He's doing his job. He goes and he tells King David that how close they were to the wall and how the soldiers died, and the commander, for the sake of the servant, knows that David is going to flare up in front of the servant. Because remember, you got Joab and King David having their own conversation in the background, and Uriah and the servant, they're just doing their bidding without being aware of it. And so the servant knows that, oh my goodness, David is going to be upset, because the point of the war is to not kill your own people, not get your own people killed. You want to conquer whoever you want to conquer with the least number of casualties. That's what they would call it, casualties of war. And so now you got all these people who have died. David is going to be like, what's going on? Like, that would be the normal response. And so he prepares the servant. He says, look, you're going to tell David that all these people died because we were so close to the wall, and we know better. And so he's going to get upset with me, Joab says, because I know better than to go up to this wall. We got a history. We got a story about what happens when you're too close to the wall. And so he's preparing the servant for David's anger, and then he gives him a response. He says that when the king gets mad, this is what you need to say. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. Basically, what Job is saying is, you can get mad if you want to, but I did what you said and I delivered what you asked. So don't front with me. Like, you can front in front of this servant if you want to, but look, we both know that all you wanted was for Uriah to die. I'm just tickling myself about this story. How many people do we have talking in the background? They got us front stage like we the characters. We talk about this as it relates to poverty. We talk about this as it relates to crime. We talk about this as it relates to all of the negative aspects of our social lives together. If you put a black face on it, the people back in the background who are pulling the strings and making the discrimination happen, we don't see that conversation. We only see the characters that have been chosen to play on the stage, those who are the most vulnerable, most marginalized. We let those people be the face of the bad news, of the face of the information. And so then those of us who are not paying attention to what's happening back here, we're going to get mad at the servant. And the servant is like, dude, I ain't got no power. And I just saw it happen today. Oh my goodness, I just saw it happen today. I was at the Sue Cowan Williams Library, and there was this young man who was very, very irritated. Like he had an irritating presence. And so I walked up. As soon as I walked up, he just started talking. Hey, lady, you look beautiful. I see you. You look like you got it. It was all of that. And I was like, oh, good, nice to see you. And he was like, let me get the door for you. The door's heavy. Let me get the door. I said, okay, fine. He pressed the door was heavy, but he pressed the handicap button. He comes in, and I don't know what he does, but he starts to have a conversation with the woman. And they have free food that you can come and get. And it looked like he had a basket. And I'm assuming he wanted to put more than the 5 items that you can have in his basket. And clearly he comes up there on a regular basis. You can only get 5 things per day. And so I don't know what they were arguing about, but that's what, from my vantage point, that's what it looked like. And so she's explaining to him in a very calm way, like, no, like, you can't do that. This is how it works. These are the rules. You have to abide by this. He goes slap off. I mean, you can hear him all throughout the library going off and talking about this and talking about that, calling her out of her name, all of this. And then he goes outside. Then he calls the cops. I'm not making this up. He is belligerent. He is out of order. He is out of control. He is making a spectacle really of himself. And then he gets mad because she's following the rules, and he goes and calls the cops. And so he wants the cops to come in and get her because he didn't get what he needed. Not realizing that you choosing your fight is with the wrong one. She is doing what the people in the background are telling her to do. She does not have the power. You fighting the wrong one. And that happens to us all the time. We get mad at the people that are doing their jobs. These are not the people who are writing policy. These are the people who are living out the policy, because that's what you do on your job. You get your handbook and you read what it says and you follow it. So he was mad at the wrong person, and he came for the wrong person. And that happens all the time. And so the servant is about to walk in to this room to talk to David, and David is about to go ballistic. And the servant is like, hey, I'm just a servant. I think, oh, do you think this is where they got that phrase, don't kill the messenger? I just thought about that. Maybe this is where it comes from. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 22. The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. Now David shocks both of them. David told the messenger, say this to Joab. Don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. He's talking to the servant. David told the messenger. So everything that I'm about to say, I should have put quotes on it. This is everything he's telling the servant to go back and say to Joab. So David told the messenger, say this to Joab. Don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. So David does not get mad at the servant because he knows exactly what's going on. And so he says, I want you to go back and encourage Uriah for his participation in the murder of, go back to Joab. We want to encourage Joab for his participation in the murder of Uriah. You hear me? So the servant is probably like, So David, because he killed the one he wanted, the one who was in the way of him being great. So if we go back to what Hotep says, if David is worried about being an adulterer, if he's worried about the eyes, the gaze of the people on him, if he's worried about how this is going to affect his kingship, if he's worried about how this is going to affect his ability to lead, then I have to eliminate this threat to my life. Because this being king is my livelihood. It is everything to me. I will not allow anybody to destroy it for me, even though Uriah ain't even coming to him. David, if it gets destroyed, it's because of your own. You the one raped the woman. And so he's the one who did wrong. And now he's creating all of these lies and this web of deceit so that he can make sure that he stays uplifted in the eyes of the people. If we agree with Hotep that he's worried about becoming an adulterer. And so now David wants to encourage Joab for what he did to kill Uriah. Now let's think about this in this world. So if black people and non-black people, if black people and non-white people and poor white people, if we are on the front lines of what's going on and they are intentionally killing us, and then they're using us without our knowledge to lead us to our death, and then they say, I want to thank you for your support. So we want to think about a Tim Scott. Oh my goodness, he's the perfect example. The words out of your mouth are the letters that the servant is holding in his hand, the letters that you are about to deliver to Donald Trump, who's going to turn around and kill you. He don't even need the letter because he already knows you about to die, because that was the design in the first place. And you don't know it because you don't realize it. You're not awake to what's happening. And so you end up participating in your own death, supporting the people. The people are going to be encouraged for killing you. This thing got hot up in here. Okay, finally, this is the end of the story. When Uriah's wife, you know her name, ain't that something? When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, when Bathsheba heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of her mourning was over, David had her brought into his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and Bathsheba became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. In the book Just a Sister Away, written by Renita Weems, there is a passage that there's a chapter that talks about women who are mourning because they know they have a sisterhood, and a member of the sisterhood is going to be put to death, and they know that. And so they go out and celebrate and sit with each other and mourn together for the loss of their sister, who they know when we get back, they're going to kill her. And so every year, these women set aside a time to mourn, because back in the day, in the Bible times, it was like a practice. It was like a job. It was like that was your job, to go and mourn with people, to wail and cry and be all in the street. And everybody knows that this is a sad occasion. Like, people would get paid to do that. So there's a time in the Bible days where you are supposed to mourn, which is really interesting that we don't practice that here. We don't practice that in the United States, where we gather together to be sad together. We gather together to hold space for each other. It's part of our faith practice, and it's not unusual at all. Now, we do these things, but we don't do it as a nation. I don't think it's not part of I know we don't. And so they're mourning. So in this particular culture, you have a time. So I don't remember how many days, but there's a time that you're supposed to spend sitting with your feelings, even if they are painful, even if they are harmful. You sit with them, and the community sits with you with them. And so after that time is over, then you keep going. It says, and the Lord was pleased that David married Bathsheba. I don't know if the Lord was pleased that David married Bathsheba. I think if looking at it through our lens, in the world in which we live and in the way we've been programmed and conditioned, then we would say yes, because if a man gets a woman pregnant, then your role is to marry her. And if you marry the woman that that you have impregnated, most people will say he stepped up. He stepped up. He made a good woman out of her. So he did the right thing. And so, yes, people will support, will encourage, be glad about it. I'm glad that you married her, so that there wouldn't be a stain on her life because she was pregnant out of wedlock. So I don't know if the Lord was pleased with David, but I know that our culture would definitely be pleased with David, and we would say, yes, he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and good for him. He's a good man for doing that. So Lord, what part are you saying really on? Really? What part are you saying really on? Let me know. So when with Bathsheba heard about Uriah's death, she takes the time to mourn. After she takes the time to mourn, once her mourning is over, David brings her into the house and makes her his wife. And so now when she has the baby, she already pregnant. You just can't tell. So when she gets pregnant, everybody starts to see. Nobody is going to second guess whose baby this is. They're gonna automatically assume that it is David's because they're on the outside looking in. They're not privy to all the information. So they're operating on the assumptions, and they keep David high and lifted up because they don't know what's really going on in his life. And which is in contrast to Donald Trump, we know what's going on in his life, and we still keep him high and lifted up. But here's the one here's the bottom, the very last line in this story says, but the thing David had done displeased the Lord. The thing David had done displeased the Lord. Talking about raping Bathsheba, trying to set up her husband, killing her husband, and then bringing her into his home as if nothing has happened. That is displeasing to the Lord. That's displeasing to the Lord. Now, I had to read that, talk about that, give us some context for the verse that's listed on the flyer. So for the verse that's listed on the flyer. And so let's look at that. And this is very short. This is Acts 13. Yeah. I think maybe it's on here. This is from the book of Acts. Absolutely, I know it's from the book of Acts. Right here. No. Don't tell me this is the one they didn't get. Oh. This is another scripture that did not load. Me and this technology. It's Acts 13. It's Acts chapter 13, just like I said. Oh my goodness, this is giving me the blues today. Acts chapter 13, verse 22. Still reading from the New International Version. Acts chapter 13, verse 22. This is Paul talking. After removing Saul, he, talking about God, made David their king. God testified concerning him, I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. He will do everything I want him to do. Listen again. This is Acts chapter 13, verse 22. After removing Saul, he made David their king. God testified concerning him, I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. He will do everything I want him to do. Okay, listen to low. God was mad with David, yet in the following, maybe he said he meant mad. God was mad with David, yet in the following statement, now God is mad with David. Wait, God was made with David. Maybe that's what you meant to say. Yet in the following statement, now God is mad with David. I don't understand when you say God was made with David. Tell me more about that. I don't understand that part. And so this man, David, he rapes a woman. He conspires to kill her husband. He rapes a woman. Then he attempts to kill her husband. Then he conspires with someone else to kill her husband. Her husband dies, and then he takes her as his wife and has a baby by her. So all of these actions that he's taking, at the end it says that God was displeased with him. So God is mad at David for, look at what you've done. You're the king. You are the one to whom all people look up. You have the highest seats in the land, and you're there to govern the people. You're there to unify the people. You're there to make sure the people have their needs met and to hear grievances. Like, you're there to conduct this society. Like, that's your role. And to whom much is given, much is required. And you decided on your watch as king to rape and attempt murder and conspire to murder and murder, and then take somebody in your home like you gonna like nobody's gonna find this out like it's no big deal. Like God is mad. And yet when Paul decides to write the letter, the letter of Acts, he puts into God's mouth, as a writer, he puts into God's mouth that God said that David was a man after God's own heart. In other words, God loves that. Like David is the man. So how we go from David being displeased about this man to God loving the man? We don't. That's the answer. We don't. This some stuff y'all done made up, because we have the record that says God was mad at him. God did not appreciate who King David was. He said, I don't appreciate this. And so I kept trying to find in the Bible where God says David is a man after my own heart. Tell me where God said that. Even if it's the writer putting it in God's mouth, that's not well, yeah, this is the writer putting it in God's mouth. I just heard myself. That the writer is putting these words in God's mouth, that David is a man after his own heart. But so these are different writers. This is Paul, and then we were talking about Samuel. So Samuel says God was displeased, but Paul comes around and says, no, actually, David was a man after God's own heart. Oh, okay. So here's clarification from Lowe. God was pleased with David, then mad with him. Oh, okay. Yes. Because David had been called by God to be king. So here I am putting you in this position because I trust you're going to do right by the people. And then you turn around and rape and attempt murder and collusion, conspiracy against to murder. And you, bring the woman home, bring the woman into your house like nothing has happened. And so, yeah, God was pleased with him until his behavior caused God to say, wait a minute, what is going on here? But then we have somebody else, even in the face of all that David has done, Paul comes back and says, no, we want to elevate. We want to keep King David elevated. And that is the world that we are living in now, that there are people who are doing blatantly egregious things right in our midst. And there are those of us who continue to prop them up. We do not hold them accountable. We do not call them out. We do not put them on the carpet. We keep saying, oh, no. We need him. The Lord called him to this place. So we got to just sweep that under the rug so that we can keep moving. And so we are now no longer Paul is no longer devoted to God. He's devoted to the king, because what you want to do is keep David high and lifted up so that the words that you use from David that helps you to bring in the people to your church. I'm going to bring it to contemporary language. Bring the people in. The more people you can bring into your church using Paul's words about David, the more money you're going to make. So God ain't said this. I know that according to Samuel, God said he was mad at David. And so now you're going to say, no. Actually, God loves David. When I was looking up, when I was researching about King David, there were so many entries. There were so many entries about how we know that David was high and lifted up, David was God's chosen, David this, David that. Okay, so here is Lowe. This is 1 Samuel 13:14, chapter 13, verse 14. This is the King James Version. But now thy kingdom shall not consider. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. So he's showing me where God says that David is a man after his own heart. So yes, okay, thank you. 1 Samuel chapter 13, verse 14, reading from the King James Version. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded. Okay. Yes, thank you. That's what God said. I've sought a man after my own heart. So when David gets into position, he is a man after God's own heart. But once he does this, all this this list of bad behavior, God says, I'm displeased with you. So I called you to do a good work for the people, And then you end up harming them, and you intentionally harming them, and you're bringing other people in on the harm that you cause. And so I think, Lo, me and you were having this conversation. I think, and I say this a lot about politicians. I really believe that very many politicians go into politics because they believe that is what they are being led to do for the sake of the people. I remember Kamala Harris. I started reading her book. I didn't finish it, but I started reading her book, and she said she dreamt of one day becoming a lawyer, an attorney, so that she could say, stand up and say, Kamala Harris for the people. And so that was her dream. And so many people go into politics saying, I'm going to be the one who changes this. I'm going to be the one who gets things done. I'm going to be the one that dismantles this system. I'm going to be the one that gets the people help. I'm going to be the one that boosts our youth. Like, you have all of these good intentions, and yet when you get in office, the office itself corrupts you. Now, people can say let me change that. You allow yourself to be corrupted by the system, because you don't have to be, but you allow yourself to be. Yet the only way you can be, the only way that you can't be corrupted is if you're not in the system. In order to not be corrupted by the system, you got to get out of it. But if you stay in it, then you are going to hold on to the benefit of being in it. I don't know about Kamala Harris. I'm using this as an assumption. I would think that because being able to say Kamala Harris for the people was so important to her, something that she wanted to hold on, because it's a dream she's had since a child. I could see how it's possible that she could get hemmed up in a situation where she knows that this is not right, but I don't want to let go of being able to say Kamala Harris for the people. That becomes more important to me than anything else. So being King David is more important to me than making sure I live out the life that's pleasing to God. I'm doing all of this if Lo is right, because I got to save face with the people. I got to keep this position, because if I don't save face with the people, I'm going to get voted out. They're going to find another king. But no, I want to hold on to this seat. Like, this is my dream job. And so we lose focus on the purpose and the mission, because we are led not by our faith. We're led by our desire. In this case, that's what was happening to King David. And so again, the same thing can be said about us. Politicians get in there and they want to do what's best. They say they're going to do what's best, and they end up not doing it. And they recruit, and if they end up not doing it, and they end up harming folks. You're creating policy. You are writing legislation that's going to intentionally harm people, and then you get everybody else in your party to co-sign on it. So now you got a collaboration of dehumanizers causing all of this harm to people. And God says, no, God is not pleased with that. So even though I considered you to be a man after my own heart, look at what you are doing. This is not a reflection of me. You have just shown me who you are. That's what people would say. But God already knew who he was. Well, let's think about that. If God is so displeased with David's behavior, and God is the one that we blame for everything, why didn't God stop David? Why did God let David rape Bathsheba? Why would God allow her body to be violated in that way? Why would God allow David to kill Uriah, an innocent man? And from the way the text is, he's an innocent, upstanding man. He's thinking about his colleagues. He's concerned about his fellow soldiers on the field. He will not indulge in anything that's going to please his body, while he knows that there are people yet suffering in the world. I'm not getting ready to take my eyes. So this is an upstanding person that God allowed to be killed. If we use the theology that we have going, that God is responsible for everything. And so somewhere theology, we've changed the theology, because it say God ain't pleased with him. And so we want to fix it and say, oh, no. But he was a man after God's own heart, which then validates everything that David did. And so, yes, now you are saying that God let Bathsheba be raped. God did it. So why did God do it? Why didn't God interfere? Because God gives us free will. So God says, okay, I know this ain't right. I'm not happy with it. I don't want you to do it. But since you got free will, but free will is a lie. If I had free will, if we had free will, then we would not be bound by this like, where is our free will in our Christian faith? Like, if I become a Christian according to the Western way of interpreting theology, if I don't do what the Bible says, I'm going to hell. So where is the free will in that? So I don't have free will within my faith practice, but I got free will in the world to kill somebody, to rape somebody, and to murder somebody, to kill somebody, to rape somebody, and to collude with people to do that work. Is listen, think about that now. So we got free will when it's time to kill somebody, but I don't have free will if I want to question God. It's 8:00, y'all. Oh my goodness, I can see this comment. I can see a part 2 to this. I'm not really keen on part 2s, but I really don't want to let this conversation go. But thank you so much for being here for the good fight. This has been really, and I've had some dog moments like right here talking to y'all. So I really appreciate it. I will see you next week, same time, same place, 7:00 CST, right here on Facebook, streaming through StreamYard with the good fight. Oh, wait. There's one. I see this message just came in. Many politicians commit moral turpitude is a quality of dishonesty or other morality. Many politicians commit moral turpitude is a quality of dishonesty or other immorality. Is a quality of dishonesty or other morality? I don't think I understand what you're saying. Many politicians commit. I get that part. Is a quality of dishonesty or other immorality. I don't know. The way I'm reading this is that many politicians do all of this bad stuff. Many politicians, like, it's almost to the point where if you're gonna be a politician, you gotta do bad stuff. We may be to that point for some folks who are in office. Let me just make this disclaimer. I know not everyone in public office is corrupt and doing corrupt things or trying to be a part of the corruption. I realize that. But by and large, the system that we have right now, corruption runs freely. They got free will to corruption. Absolutely. Okay. So thank you all for joining us for the good fight. I've taken up 2 more minutes of your time. Please. I hope you'll be able to reclaim it at some point. I'll see you next week.